Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. I forgot to hit record on the video recording, so I'm going to have to redo this episode. So, I'm going to start this off by showing a recording of Jen Psaki's press conference from earlier today. Let's get started.
He has every plan to do exactly that.
Thank you, Jen. I do have a question on COVID, but first on energy. When is it that the Biden administration is going to let the thousands of fossil fuel industry workers, whether it's pipeline workers or construction workers, who are either out of work or will soon be out of work because of a Biden EO, when it is and where it is that they can go for their green job? And that is something the administration has promised. There is now a gap. So I'm just curious when that happens, when those people can count on that.
So, his question is thousands of people have lost their job or will lose their jobs due to Biden's EO. Where are these jobs that were promised in the green sector?
Well, I'd certainly welcome you to present your data of all the thousands and thousands of people who won't be getting a green job. Maybe next time you're here, you can present that.
But that wasn't his question. He was asking where those jobs were at. He never claimed that they weren't ever going to receive a job. He was asking, where are those jobs at? You made a promise. Now pay up. You made a promise. You said that by doing this, these individuals will be able to get high-paying union jobs in the green industry. And where are those jobs at? We can't seem to find them. Here's her response.
Said that they would be getting green jobs, so I'm just asking when that happens. Richard Trumka, who is a friend, longtime friend of Joe Biden, says about that day one Keystone EO, he says, I wish he, the president, had paired that more carefully with the thing that he did second by saying, here's where we are creating the jobs. So there's partial evidence from Richard Trumka.
Well, you didn't include all of his interview. Would you like to include the rest?
So how about this? The Laborers International Union of North America said the Keystone decision will cost 1,000 existing union jobs and 10,000 projected construction jobs.
Well, what Mr. Trumka also indicated in the same interview was that President Biden has proposed a climate plan with transformative investments in infrastructure and laid out a plan that will not only create millions of good union jobs, but also help tackle the climate crisis.
So he's laid out a plan. I can plan to be a millionaire next week. So, because I'm planning to be a millionaire in a week from having won the lottery, I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to buy a Lamborghini, buy a $5 million mansion complete with drawbridge, a moat with alligators. Because I know, because my plan says I will win the lottery in the next week. Don't you feel like that's putting the cart before the horse?
And as the president has indicated when he gave his primetime address to talk about the American Rescue Plan, he talked about his plans to also put forward a jobs plan.
I plan to put forward a plan to get jobs. So these jobs aren't even planned. I'm going to make a proposal. So the proposal hasn't even been proposed. What is going on? You are costing thousands of people their jobs, their livelihoods for what? A non-promise, a non-plan. You don't even have a plan yet, and these people are losing their jobs already. That seems short-sighted.
In the weeks or months following, and he has every plan to do exactly that.
I have every plan to become a millionaire at some point, but you don't see me trying to finance a Lamborghini. That's bananas. That's essentially what Joe Biden is doing, friends. Joe Biden says, we have every intention of having millions of green sector industry jobs, so we're going to destroy the fossil fuel industry. Well, what happens if it doesn't pan out? What happens if something happens? What happens if there's not as many jobs due to automation? What happens if there's not as many jobs due to insert excuse here? What if the jobs aren't as high paying as Joe Biden has promised? What's going to happen then? It seems like there's going to be more people dependent upon the government. And we all know the government is slow to move. The government is slow to adopt these changes. Government is slow to adopt these policy proposals. And they assume that it's just going to happen without a hitch. That is incredibly irresponsible, and someone needs to hold Joe Biden and Jen Psaki accountable for their actions, for what they're doing, for what they're saying, for the lies of which they spoke. From Just the News, Trump impeachment defense attorney says defense will include video of comments made by Democrats. Attorney Bruce Castor, during an interview on Friday with Fox News Channel's host Laura Ingraham, said that former President Donald Trump's impeachment defense will include video footage of comments made by Democrats. And there's an awful lot of tape of cities burning and courthouses being attacked and federal agents being assaulted by rioters in the street cheered on by Democrats throughout the country, and many of them in Washington, using really the most inflammatory rhetoric that's possible to use. Castor said, remarking that certainly there would be no suggestion that they did anything to incite any of the actions. Certainly there wasn't any, anyhow. Will you have dueling video? Ingraham asked Castor. Will you then respond with Maxine Waters, with a number of other Democrat officials not speaking out against Antifa and other extremist rallies over the summer? I think you can count on that. The House of Representatives last month voted to impeach Trump during his waning days in office, and the Senate is slated to hold an impeachment trial even though Trump has already departed from office. The primary issue is the issue of jurisdiction, meaning does the Senate have jurisdiction to remove from office a private citizen who doesn't hold office, said Castor, who is a member of the former president's impeachment defense team. So, why is this important? It's important because I'm going to explain in the next article. This is just basically the introductory stages of fascism in the United States. And it's not coming from what we were told for the past 5 years the fascists are, right? We were told that Trump and Trump supporters were neo-fascists, that they were white supremacists. But the real fascism is occurring with the unification of the Democrat powers of government and private corporations, right? The unification of government and corporation is essentially fascism. And it is extremely scary when you have the government says you need to silence this voice, and the next day Twitter silences a certain voice. When the government says this person should not have the right to run for public office, they broke no law. They have done nothing wrong. We just dislike him. We feel like he's a threat to our power, so we are not going to allow for them to run for office. They are acting no better than Vladimir Putin. They're acting no better than some of these dictatorial fascists throughout the world who basically destroy their political opposition. While they may not be able to just outright get rid of Donald Trump, they can certainly make it impossible for him to run for public office. They can make it impossible for him to ever live a life. They can make it impossible for him or his children or his grandchildren to ever have a life. And they are certainly doing their best. And that really concerns me. What concerns me is the government saying that we as American citizens no longer have a choice in who the president can be. And that's scary. And there's only one party that is pushing that rhetoric at the moment. The Daily Wire is reporting Bank of America is without the knowledge or consent of its customers sharing private info with feds, Tucker Carlson reports. Fox News host reported exclusively Thursday night that Bank of America is allegedly turning over private information about its customers to federal law enforcement officials without the knowledge or consent of its customers in an apparent effort to identify those who participated in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol building. Carlson led off a segment talking about how Biden administration law enforcement has stated that they want to go after domestic extremists, but have not laid out a clear definition of what qualifies as an extremist. What exactly are they doing? How are they hunting these extremists that they keep telling us about, but will not describe? We now know part of the answer to that question. This show has obtained exclusive evidence that Bank of America, the second largest bank in the country with more than 60 million customers, is actively but secretly engaged in the hunt for extremists in cooperation with private government. Bank of America is, without the knowledge or consent of its customers, sharing private information with federal law enforcement agencies. Bank of America effectively is acting as an intelligence agency, but they're not telling you about it. In the days after the January 6th riot at the Capitol, Bank of America went through its own customers' financial and transaction records. These were the private records of Americans who had committed no crime, people who, as far as we know, had absolutely nothing to do with what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. But at the request of federal investigators, Bank of America searched its database looking for people who fit a specific profile. Here's what the profile was. And then he talks about people who basically stayed in a hotel from January 5th to 6th, anybody who bought an airplane ticket, anybody who bought anything from a place that sells firearms, which is basically every big box store. So what do you notice about that profile? Well, the first thing you notice is that it's extremely broad. Any purchases of anything in the city of Washington, D.C., any overnight stay, any overnight stay anywhere in the 3-state area. There's a bunch of typos in these quotes that spans hundreds of miles. Any purchase, not simply of legal firearms, but instead of anything bought from a weapons related merchant, t-shirts included, and then any airline related purchases, not just flights to Washington, flights to anywhere, to Omaha, to Thailand. Bank of America identified a total of 211 customers who met the thresholds of interest. And it was at that point the show has learned Bank of America turned over the results of its internal scan to federal authorities, apparently without notifying the customers who were being spied upon. Federal investigators then interviewed at least one of these unsuspecting people, and then they were cleared. Because Bank of America did that, you are being treated like a member of Al Qaeda. What country is this? It doesn't matter how much you despise Donald Trump or how much you believe the hatred of Trump justifies suspending this country's ancient civil liberties. Going through that experience would scare the hell out of you. Absolutely a terror suspect, you would think. Does anyone else know about this? Is there a record of this interview? Will I lose my job about it? Imagine losing your job because your bank said, whoa, Mr. Lawman, this person could be a fascist. But who are the fascists? Again, who are the fascists? It's bananas what's going on. Carlson then read off a statement from Bank of America because they confirmed what actually happened by not denying it. We don't comment on the communications with law enforcement. All banks have responsibility under federal law to cooperate with law enforcement inquiries in full compliance with the law. Now the last part from the lawyer's perspective, in the essence, in full compliance with the law. It's the law. We had no choice. But that's not true. Bank of America did have a choice. The bank could have resisted turning over information on its innocent customers to federal investigators. But Bank of America did not do that, nor is it clear, if we're going to be precise about it, that what Bank of America did is even legal. It turns out it's not simple. It's a gray area. We spoke to a number of lawyers about this, and some of us told us that what Bank of America did might in fact not be legal and could in fact be challenged in court. So it's extremely concerning. Now you're having corporations, again, like Twitter and now Bank of America, proactively doing the government's bidding on their behalf. I don't know if it's due to threats of regulation. I know Twitter probably did it because of that. I know YouTube is probably doing that because of that. Because the fascistic state says we only want what we believe to be the truth to be allowed. We only want what we approve of to be allowed in society. So we're going to unite with private corporations and expel anybody who disagrees with what we believe. We're going to disallow anybody who doesn't believe in our beliefs to run for office. We're going to not enable them to have a job. We're not going to enable them to have a bank account. We're not going to allow them to even have a voice. And that is dangerous, friends. That is extremely concerning. And again, it's similar to what Hitler did back in the 30s, when basically he limited anti-Nazi propaganda in newspapers. He basically disabled access to anti-Nazi radio stations. He forced corporations to not do businesses with certain groups of people. So there are similarities to the past of current political parties with fascistic regimes of years past, years gone by, and it is not the one that we've been told that was the fascist. So both parties are full of crap, and that's for certain, but there's only one party that's actively trying to take away your individual freedoms, and you should be afraid of that party. Again, this isn't a sum-zero game. You don't have to take away somebody's right for somebody else to receive rights. However, everybody should have a problem when a politician, when a political party, when the government says we're going to restrict a group of people's rights to bank, we're going to restrict a group of people's rights to have free speech, we're going to restrict a group of people's rights to do anything that goes against our ideology, because that means that they're just basically turning government into a religion. The fetishization of science is a perfect example. If you distrust science, it's because you're a white supremacist fascist who is a knuckle dragger and doesn't understand how to read because you're from the Midwest. It's bananas. So that's going to be it for now, friends. I'm going to post another video later today. Until next time, see you later. Bye.